So we're at more than 1,000 feet away, so 1,049 feet away, and we have a picture, and we are still at line of sight. So let's see if we could keep pushing this and figure out how far we can actually go. So let's talk about the Vaxis Atom 500 receiver and transmitter. These are a wireless receiver and transmitter pair that allow you to take an HDMI signal out of your camera and then transmit it over to a monitor. So typically in the professional world, these are very, very, very expensive. They come in at 0 latency, which means they're made so that you can actually pull focus from them. The Vaxis Atom 500 is an affordable solution that is targeted at prosumers, YouTubers, vloggers, and content creators. So I thought it would be a good idea to do a comparison of features and everything else that makes up this system against another wireless system, one which I've talked about in the past, the HollylandMars400s. And we're going to see just how far we can actually go when we're using the HollylandMars400. It's rated at 400 feet, so let's see if we could actually go the full 400 feet. 700 feet, 700 feet, 700 feet out of the Mars 400S, and still no issues. Good picture. I see I still have a pretty strong signal. My GoPro battery is gonna die before this thing dies, I think. 649, 480, 400 feet, 500 feet. We are in downtown Fargo, and what we're going to do is we're going to actually test the Vaxis Atom 500 transmitter and receiver. So this is a wireless transmitter and receiver. And we want to see just how far or how much distance we can actually get out of this. So to make this happen, we have a stationary camera here, and this is the Canon EOS R. So let's fire this camera up. F22, yeah, bright day. And we have a picture. So we're now ready, and we're gonna use this measuring tool to see just how far we can actually go before we lose the signal from the Canon EOS R. I should hit record on this guy so we can actually see what the camera is seeing and record it as we go along. So let's take a walk. So here we are at more than 1,000 feet away, and we have a crystal clear signal coming out of the Vaxis Atom 500. So let's just double check the measurements. I'm doing great, how are you? Yeah, thank goodness we're alive, right? I think they both performed exceptionally well. There was a time where a train was coming by and that interrupted the signal because it is line of sight, right? These are consumer or prosumer models, but that is to be expected. Also, how many times have you been on an indie set, or how big is your YouTube set, that you are actually more than 2 city blocks away from your video village? Because that's the kind of range that we're talking about with these units. It's really impressive. And again, $480 for the Vaxis system, it's almost a no-brainer. So I've now connected the transmitter directly into the camera. The Atom 500 has both HDMI in and out. And what that gives me is the ability to not just send the signal from the camera to the transmitter, but then also loop it out into my main monitor. The technology between the two will automatically allow them to communicate so that the receiver will automatically connect to the same channel that the transmitter is transmitting on. And we have picture. With this picture, you're now also able to sort of determine what that latency looks like. So if I raise my hand, you guys can see how much latency there is, but that's obviously not where this stops, right? Because one of the best parts about the Atom 500 is its ability to also send a signal so that people can monitor via iOS devices. I'm going to fire up the Vaxis app. I'm going to select connect to device. So now we got a picture on the monitor, and we also have a picture right on my iOS device, which is really, really convenient because this means any one of your clients, right, especially if you work in indie production or you're doing solo work, you can very easily turn their own iPhone into a monitor. I'm moving my hands on purpose to give you guys a sense of latency. It looks like the latency is really, really, really tight. Now, can you pull focus with it? This again is a prosumer series wireless video system. So the answer to that would be no, which is also true of the Hollyland. And we are going to see what kind of latency we get out of the Hollyland, but I'm really happy with this. I feel like for YouTubers, content creators, the kind of latency that we're getting is actually really acceptable. You guys can see the latency between the phone or the monitor or the iPad or the actual video so that you can determine. But can you see the flexibility of the system? And one of the reasons why I get really excited when we see products that are designed this way. Let's switch wireless systems so that we can compare the latency between the HollylandMars400 and this Atom 500. Now that I've switched out from the Vaxis Atom 500s over to the HollylandMars400s, you guys can see that they have similar capabilities. The Hollyland is also able to send a signal out to a monitor, and it's also able to send a signal out to multiple iOS devices. What you guys can't see, unfortunately, is that I am now not able to use my reference monitor. That is a limitation of the HollylandMars400. Whereas when we switch over and use the Vaxis system, because the actual transmitter has the ability to both do HDMI in and HDMI out, we are going to be able to send a signal not just to a monitor wirelessly, but I'm going to be able to loop out that signal to my reference monitor. And now that we've switched out the wireless systems and we're back on the Vaxis Atom 500, as you guys can see, we're monitoring on both iOS devices. And this is before I fired up the actual receiver, which really means you don't have to use a receiver. You can go out and simply use your iOS devices. That's kind of a plus. It works the same way on the Hollyland system, just so that you guys all know. Okay, so let's take a closer look at these two units. As you can see, they are similar in size, similar in the width, but the one thing that is very, very different is the fact that the antennas are built in to the Atom 500, where they are not built in on the Hollyland. So I like the idea of having the antennas built into the system so that there's nothing out that could actually break. Here we have a barrel connection. It does have a screw-on connector so that you can't pull the little barrel out. On the Hollyland, that's one way of powering it. You can also use Sony MPF style batteries to actually power the unit. That's another way. The Vaxis system actually ships with a USB to USB-C type of connector that allows you to power up the unit. So when you put this on your camera, you can very quickly run a cable right to a battery that has USB out without having to rely on this or worry about how much juice is left in one of these batteries. On the Hollyland, we have HDMI in or SDI in. There is no loop out or loop through. On the Vaxis system, we have HDMI in and HDMI out. I use the HDMI out so that I could send that off to my either onboard monitor or my reference monitor, especially if I'm shooting by myself, like I am in this very specific scenario. The Hollyland unit, unfortunately, doesn't give me that option. 1, 2, 3. Get him started. Vaxis already got screen. Now I got a screen on Hollyland. So that's how quick they fire up. And they both have fans. I don't have a way that I'm aware of controlling the fan on the Hollyland unit. The longer this runs, the louder this fan gets. If I bring it up to the microphone so that you guys can hear it, I'm going to bring this up to the mic so you guys can get a sense as to what auto on the fan, right? So fan auto mode, what that sounds like. Obviously, the longer it runs, it might actually go to high. But if I want to change that setting, let's say that this is too close to my talent or my sound source, I have the ability to do that by pressing down on what I'm going to call the left button. So I'm going to press and hold that left button, left as I'm looking at it, and it begins to blink. I can now press it one more time, and now listen to this. It's completely silent. I think that that's actually a really cool feature, being able to adjust the fan of the actual transmitter and receiver, because it works the same way. So let's say that you're getting interference, your picture is freezing, or you're actually not able to get a picture and you need to change channels. You can do that manually, and you do that by double pressing the left button. Again, as I'm looking at it, I'm calling it the left button. So I'm going to do 2 presses, and then you can see I'm cycling through the channels. To connect the unit to your iOS device, you actually need to know the SSID and password. And to get to that point, you need to press and hold the middle button for about 5 seconds, and then you see it switches over. Then you press the down arrow, and that's the SSID. You need to enter that SSID into the app so that it knows where to pair. Then you press down one more time, and it gives you a password. This is a randomly generated password that is unique to each system, so it will only work with that system. And once you put that in, all you have to do is press connect, and your iOS device will actually pair. The HollylandMars400s feels heavier to me than the Atom 500. This is a lot lighter. It just feels lighter, even though I do have the optional low mount. This allows you to mount on your hot shoe in the low profile mode instead of sticking up, and it still feels lighter. These units just feel beefier. I don't think that affects any of the quality because this is metal housing. The top is some sort of plastic because that is where the antennas are. So this darker side that you guys see here is in fact plastic, but the rest of it is this all metal. So this whole bottom piece feels very rigid, very well made. It doesn't feel like it's going to fall apart. So now let's talk about a couple of the things that I would like to see different in these units. I'm going to start with the HollylandMars400s. I think that this unit is good. I'd like to see their price be more competitive with the Atom 500. I really don't see why they went with SDI and HDMI both in and no loop out solution or option for this unit. To me, this is confusing, and one thing that I would like to change about the HollylandMars400s. Another thing I would like to change about the HollylandMars400s is the way that you have to connect to the app. You have to scan the QR code that is directly behind the unit, which really means that if this is already rigged up on your camera and all of a sudden you need to send out the feed to an iOS device, you now need to sort out how to make sure that the iOS device can scan this QR code so that you can actually begin to monitor the signal out of this transmitter. The Hollyland app will not remember the connection and automatically reconnect. In other words, if I want to use my iPad, say pair it before I even got to the client, and then I got there, I give the iPad to the client, fire it up, and they can start monitoring, I actually need to connect every single time. And that's something that I wish would change with the HollylandMars400s system. On the Vaxis system, the one thing I would like to see changed is, again, the way that we connect to the iOS device. On my iPad, it will remember the SSID and the password, but it makes me first go to settings, pick the Atom 500 wireless network to connect to. Once it's connected, I can then launch the Vaxis app, and then it will allow me to connect. On my iPhone 11 Pro Plus, I have to type in the SSID and password every time I want to connect to these. None are deal breakers, but they would make for a lot more speed and efficiency while on set. If you don't monitor with iOS devices, and you are going to use both the receiver and the transmitter, then really you're in good shape. There's very little, if anything, that I would change. I like the form factor, I like the weight, I like how small they are, I like that I don't have to worry about antennas or replacing antennas. I probably, and actually I just thought of this, I would like to see 2 of these low profile mounting brackets so that I can put one on each, just in case I needed to mount both. I do want to send a big shout out to Vaxis for sending this unit out for review and evaluation. I appreciate you guys as content creators, as people that are creating and having to work in multiple environments, oftentimes by ourselves. Units like these come in really, really handy. And the fact that they are pushing their pro level technology, because you guys saw the latency test, and pushing it down into a prosumer or consumer grade product at $480, it just, thank you for companies like these. So hopefully you guys enjoy the video. And remember, if you haven't subscribed, you should, because what we're trying to do here is build a community of filmmakers, cinematographers, content creators at all different levels so that we can share our experiences and knowledge and all of us level up together. Until next time, I'm Carlos with Media IQ, helping you guys compete in today's web economy. Thanks for watching and take care.